Bishop Kukah, you know, some of the advocates of this bill, particularly in the National Assembly, but even in the national security circles in the country, are making the argument that prevention is better than cure. And so far, you've mentioned the role of the police, the role of some of the security agencies in curtailing some of the kind of potential excesses of some NGOs, but that comes after the fact. How do you regulate some of these activities in such a way that we don't wait for another IPOB to spring up? Because we know, for example, if we use the IPOB as an example, how did it start? Where did the funding come from? How did that begin? It began with donor funds. It was an NGO. It was a non-for-profit organization. We now know what it became. So for when you look at an example like that and you saw the impact of what eventually it came to in Nigeria, what would you say to those advocates that say prevention is better than cure?
Prevention of what and cure of what? In most cases, what we have in Nigeria is people are providing a cure that is worse than the disease. We need to address the issue of the structural deficiency of the Nigerian state. Its lack of capacity to address the issues of the welfare of citizens. For me, these are the critical questions, and this is why people are in government. Ask the people in the National Assembly, why is there such a heavy hemorrhage of people in the National Assembly with almost no institutional memory? When you talk about, you know, the PIB bill or whatever, where is it today? The critical question, and I think this is what I think you need to be addressing, who left the door open? These international agencies you are talking about, they are the ones that people are relying on for a range of things. Now, I hear the concern about the International Red Cross. The International Red Cross was founded in, what, 1863? Yes, 1863. Again, it was purely by accident. The man who founded the International Red Cross, simply, he wasn't going there. He was actually going to France for something completely different, namely because he had business in Algeria. Now, he saw all these dead bodies in a place called Solferino, and he said he couldn't deal with the fact that there was such incredible human carnage. Beginning of the problem. Today we have what is called the International Red Cross. Now, the question is, how do we react to evil or the quality of, when we see the quality of lives of people depreciated? We're talking about, you talk about the Northeast. It is not enough to blame Boko Haram. My grandmother used to say, the rabbit doesn't quarrel with the person who shot it. It quarrels with the person who made him leave his hole. So for me, how did Boko Haram come about? I have not seen a deliberate attempt by Nigerians to interrogate the question, what brought about Boko Haram? And I've written quite extensively on this. But my argument is that to understand Boko Haram, you have to push back the clock of Nigerian politics for the last 100 years. So don't talk about Boko Haram as an isolated incident in the, in the Northeast.
He talked about IPOB. He mentioned IPOB and
no, but okay,
the fact that it could be a security threat.
Again, but you see, even when you talk about IPOB, I mean, frankly, you got my friend Dr. Kaede Fayemi, who is today minister, and a great friend of mine who did a lot of work for civil society. Perhaps very few people did the kind of work that he did. But there was Kudira Radio, okay, which was a pirate radio station under Abacha. Now, IPOB radio, pirate radio station, what is the difference in context? Now, I believe that given the amount of investment that Nigeria has made in the name of security, it was not rocket science, nor is it brain surgery to figure out how to shut down a radio station of that nature. Plus, believe me, I had never listened to, from the beginning to the end, I had no idea what the radio station was. We must then go back to the scene of the crime and ask, what did the government do? And how did it do it to create the monster that we ended up being faced with? So, you know, for me, it's not enough that things happen. It is the question, why do things happen? You know, so, and I think if governments don't ask those questions, and only civil society is positioned to ask those questions.
So with that example that you've given, talking about the radio station, and even with anything that is good, the common saying is that too much of everything good can become bad. And even, you know, everything that is good will also have a downside to it. some people will say that perhaps what this law is seeking, what this bill is seeking to do, is mitigate the downside of civil societies.
Look,
people who might seek to hide underneath that cover the good that civil society can do and do things that are negative.
Listen,
how do you mitigate
what I'm saying, read the bill.
You don't think it needs any mitigation?
Listen, I mean, read the bill. When I went to the National Assembly yesterday, I actually wanted to wear a black soutane and to say, you know what, we should be presiding over the funeral of this bill. In thought, in articulation, the bill does not suggest that it understands the nature of the structure of the agencies of Nigeria. There are things there that, why do you have customs? Why do you have EFCC? Why do you have the police? Why do you have the judiciary? And the critical question is, people are saying too much freedom. We are still stuck with this dubious African mentality that people don't know, they will not know how to use freedom if you gave it to them. Men think that they need to regulate the activities of their wives because if we don't trust their wives, they will behave well if you give them freedom. I am saying the cardinal defining principle of democracy is freedom. And any society that limits the frontiers of human imagination and what people can do, it is the business of government to create some kind of limitations. I was at your celebration of channels in Lagos. You remember what Mrs. Momo had to say about how this station started. Did you imagine that you'll be here? Did you imagine, and by the way, congratulations, that you will win these awards 12 consecutive times?
Thank you.
Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, if somebody didn't, because the NTA still believed in it, I said NTA, the federal government, the military government, which is what, most of what is wrong with us in Nigeria is the hangover of military rule. We are up till today. The Vatican was the first institution to commence broadcasting. But under an iniquitous and unjust and unfair and ignorant law, the Catholic Church cannot set up a broadcasting station because somehow the military believe we cannot let Nigerians be free because we don't know what they will do with their freedom. That hangover is what is driving politics today. And what you have as politics in Nigeria, we're nowhere near where the boundaries of this freedom are going to be expressed. So for me, the idea that somebody will sit and say, I don't know how people will behave,